Hi again. Now let's cover the second part of measurement. First, I want to talk a little bit about variables. It's usually what we mean in daily life as factors, reasons, or things we care about. Variable is just a scientific name we assign to it. There are two types of variables we pay attention in scientific research. One is called independent variable. Sometimes we just call it IV. It's the cause, the predictor, the reason we believe that leads something else to happen in the future. And then next one is dependent variable. We call it DV sometimes. This is the effect, the outcome. So if you want to see the relationship, usually in scientific research, especially in social science, we believe IV lead to DV. IV contributed to DV. That's the reason DV has happened. And now let's talk about different levels of measurement. We need to measure IV and DV, independent variable and dependent variable. And the relationship can switch. Some variable may be independent variable this time and dependent variable next time in a different study. So it doesn't matter which type of variable it is, you always need to measure it with different levels of measurement. The first type is nominal. It's variable that is measured with categories. Numbers are assigned here, but they are meaningless. And all those categories should be mutually exclusive. There should be no overlapping between the two categories. And all the options should be there. It should be exhaustive. Everything must fit in one category. It's the weakest form of measurement. I have an example here. Usually we ask in a survey, which political party do you identify with? Democrat, Republican, Green Party, or other. So you see all the options are here. If you don't identify with any of this party, you can click on other. And there's no overlap between Democrat and Republican. If you don't feel like you belong to either Democrat or Republican, then you can click other. But you cannot click on Democrat and Republican at the same time. And did you watch TV yesterday? Yes or no? Of course, we can assign numbers saying yes will be represented as 1, no will be represented as 2, but number doesn't really mean anything. Just represent 1 is one category, 2 is a different category. This is the weakest form of measurement. The next level of measurement is ordinal. It's measured with rank order categories. They tell you the placement, but not how far apart those categories are. Let's say rank your major news source. You rank internet as the highest, and then television, then newspaper, then other, maybe social media or something. But you can see, even though I know with this ordinal measurement, internet is the highest one, I don't know how much higher internet is than television. Just because 1 is 1 point apart from 2, 2 is 1 point apart from 3, it doesn't mean those distances are equal. It doesn't mean I use internet more than television exact the same amount I use television more than newspaper. It's possible I rely on internet as my news source 95% of the time, then maybe 3% of the time I rely on television and 1% of the time on newspaper. You see, you can rank them, but you can't tell them how far apart they are. So the numbers here give you some information. It's not completely meaningless, but it's not a lot of information to work with. The next one is interval. This is a higher level of measurement. It's measurement points with equal distance between them. So we assume our scale have equal distance between points, but remember there's no true zero. I have an example here for you. Do you agree or disagree that with this statement? I watched a lot of TV yesterday. I can say I strongly agree or I strongly disagree. Let's look at the first part of the scale, 1 to 5. If I rated 4 and another person, let's say Sarah, rated herself as a 3, neither agree or disagree, and another person, Sam, rated himself as 2, I will assume the difference between Sam, who rated as a 2, to Sarah, who rated herself as a 3, is the same as Sarah and me, 3 between 4. We assume the distances are equal between the numbers. So the number really means something. But there is no true zero because you can always you can put wherever you want the zero to be. You just have shift other points accordingly. Let's say the second part of the scale, I just put a 0 as neutral. Then +1, +2. On the left side, -1, -2. You see, as long as the scale is very balanced and the distance is meaningful, you assume equal distance, it doesn't really matter where you put the 0. That's interval. The highest level of measurement in social science is the ratio. Measurement points with equal distance between them, and you have a true meaningful 0. For instance, how much TV did you watch yesterday? It sounds like a similar question compared to the last one I asked you. But here I ask you round up your answer to the nearest hour. So 0 hour really means 0 hour. I didn't watch TV at all. Then 1 hour, 2 hour, 3 hour, 4 hour, 5 hour, 6 hours. You see there's a meaningful 0 here. You can't shift to 0 saying watch 3 hours means you didn't watch anything. You can't do that. There's a meaningful starting point for this scale, and the distance between 0 to 1 equals the distance between 1 to 2. So equal distance, meaningful 0. That's ratio measurement. And this is the highest level of measurement. In social science, we use ordinal scales once in a while, but because the information the numbers gave you is hard to work with, so we won't spend much time here. We will explain more later when we're doing more stats analysis why we don't deal with ordinal as much. But we deal with two types here. Discrete, the nominal measurement. All the options are categories. Your measurement cannot include subpart. You don't have a 50% Republican. You're either Republican or you're not Republican. Or continuous, which include interval or ratio measurement. You can do subparts and do math with them. You can be the temperature outside can be 30.2, 32.5 degrees Fahrenheit. It may be a different number if you use a different scale to measure temperature. But all those numbers are continuous and you can do math with it. And we will use rating scales. You already see that. It can be nominal or what we call discrete or continuous scales. You ask people to provide a numeric response, to circle response or check a box. And the number of response points can vary based on a specific type of scale. Let's say the nominal rating scale we provided have, for party ID, we had 4, Democrat, Republican, Green, or other. So that's 4 points. And for interval and the ratio, you can have more. Like hours you watch TV from 0 hours to 24 hours yesterday. So the points can add more or less, depends on the type of scale you're providing. There are two major types I want to talk about here. One is called the Likert scale. It's because it's divided by this guy. You can use strongly agree to strongly disagree with 5 points, or sometimes people use 7. But the idea is the same. You go from one extreme all the way to the other extreme, and in the middle is always the neutral answer. You can also do frequency, never to every day. Like how many days in the last week have you visited a newspaper website? Never 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, 5 days, 6 days, 7 days, which means every day I visited a newspaper website. So you can use the frequency. Or am I completely satisfied or completely dissatisfied with my experience at SFA here? So again, the key to Likert or Likert type categories are you go from one extreme to the other extreme, and the middle point is always the neutral answer. The next type of scale we call the semantic differential scales. You have, again, one extreme to the other, but those are more specific. It has to be the opposite of that specific word. You are either motivated or unmotivated, uninterested or interested. So the difference between semantic differential scale and the Likert scale is, with semantic differential scales, we put adjectives on two ends so people can see what's the two extreme and they pick one. You don't have description for each data point. They will rate where they are on the scale from 1 to 7. You can see there are some similarities between those two scales, but they can also look very different on the piece of paper. The last point I want to make here is we don't have a measurement that really corresponds with actual number, with reality. Like we talked about before, most of the time you can shift where the true 0 is. You don't have to use the number that I presented here. You can use the different sets of numbers, still makes sense. So there's a concept we call it isomorphism. It means that your measurement corresponds with the reality. Temperature means something, but there are different types of scale of temperature that you can change. That's for hard science, but for social science, we usually ask people about their attitude, their belief. the number we assign is just trying to give us a relative position. Let's say how satisfied you are. Extremely dissatisfied maybe means 0 on my scale or -7 on my scale. It just tells you it's more dissatisfied than neutral. It's more like a relative position. It doesn't really mean a 2 in reality. So just keep that in mind when you're developing measurement for the survey assignment we're going to do later. That's all I have today. We covered measurement this week. I hope you had a good time. And please always think about measurements with specific examples that will help you understand abstract concepts. I will see you next week.